And in P1, everybody's favorite hot boy in the low Honda, 94 points for the weekend. Brilliant drive, super fun to watch, Mr. Eric Catil. Eric Catil in P1.
What is up, guys? Back in the shop. It's been a while. Honestly, I haven't been in the shop for 2 months, and that's awesome because I had a very busy off season. Yeah, spent the last month. I had a little family trip to Florida, which was great, and I did a lot of work to my daily insight. It's kind of a long story. It's pretty boring, but it was down for 2 or 3 months, and I fixed it, and now it's my daily again because driving the truck every day to work was getting really expensive. So the insight for the win, 60 MPGs. It's awesome. So anyway. So anyway, race car. As you guys know, CMP went absolutely awesome. Couldn't have had a better event, honestly. 3 wins and a 3rd place overall win for the weekend. Epic. The car was awesome. It was flawless. It handled really, really well. Of course, I had a few minor impacts with a few competitors, you know, a little bit of over-under action here. Matan broke the corner, and then of course over here, broke that corner as well, and this headlight. Few scuffs on the bumper too, but not the end of the world. Pretty minor damage. I mean, the car still looks absolutely awesome. Just washed it and got all the, you know, rubber marks off of it. Looks freaking awesome, man. Looks so good. So anyway, Gingerman Midwest Festival is 1 week away, and I figured I gotta get back in the shop. I gotta get this thing ready because I've been just procrastinating. What's on my to-do list? Number 1, do a little set down, get it on the alignment rack, measure the alignment, see if anything's shifted, record all that, and then while I'm doing that, I'll just get it set up for Gingerman so I don't have to get the car on and off the rack. And then yeah, just do a once over, look at all the suspension parts, look at the axles, engine, just make sure everything is up to spec. And then in terms of mods, I don't really have much planned besides I'm just gonna finish the brake duct system. So you probably have seen me add these little brake duct holes, and then I covered them up for CMP because there's nothing connected to these. It's just an open hole right into the engine bay. So I got, I think, 2.5-inch brake duct hose that I'm gonna connect to these guys and then route it to the brakes. So other than that, I don't really have much else to do on the car. The car was great at CMP. Gingerman is a very similar kind of track. I think it'll do great there. So anyway, got the car clean, got 2 wheels clean, and I'll show you a quick little trick on how to clean white wheels because they look like that. Literally burned the white paint off. But now I'm working on the wheels. So pro tip for all the detailers, you know, you got your normal sponges, right? I use this for wheels, you know, this for the car body. This is my Nexter one. But pro tip, if you got white wheels, my favorite sponge is actually a Scotch-Brite pad. Cause man, when these wheels get so dirty like this, regular sponge doesn't take it off, but what does take it off is a little Scotch-Brite action. Look at that, nice and clean. Really get that brake dust off. Look at this spoke right here. Let's take a look. Look at that, man. Got to keep it well lubricated with some nice soapy water, and that brake dust just comes right off, along with a little bit of paint. But hey, we're not going to worry about that right now. That's a future problem. Red Brillo pad, clean up those wheels nice. And look at this. Let's go to the rear, right? We got some stain right there. Normal sponge. Normal sponge ain't gonna do shit. But look at this guy right here. Woo! Like it never was even there. Before, after. Look at that, huge improvement. Not bad. But anyway, let's get to work. Let's get this car on the alignment rack. I'm gonna take you guys along for the journey. show you guys how I measure my alignments, how I do alignments, and then yeah, we'll just review the car, make sure everything's good to go, and get ready for next week's event. So let's do it. So, step number one is obviously get it on the rack. And then number two is to get weight in the car. Unfortunately, if I sit in here to simulate driver weight, who's gonna actually do the alignment? Nobody. So, that means I gotta do it. So let's do some weightlifting. Weights. I put about 50 pounds on the pedal box area, kind of simulate the weight of my legs, and then the rest of the weight goes in the seat. This is the worst. This is literally the worst part about doing alignments, is moving these things, and you know, you gotta lift with your back. How else are you gonna freaking put the weights in there, right? 100 total pounds. 125, 150, 175. I weigh about 185, but I put an even 200 in there. 200, so let's just add weight of the helmet, suit, me drinking a lot of water, and maybe a few hamburgers that day, I don't know. So we got the weight in the car, we got the car on the rack. What's next? Tire pressure. It's actually really important to set the tire pressure equal on all four corners, because if your tire pressure is off, it will change the corner balance a lot. So I like to set them all to 30, which is pretty close to when I run these tires hot. I think 28 is my target hot. So already done. So yeah, I'm just gonna go all four corners. Just kidding. So I'm gonna do all four corners to 30%, and then we'll move on to the next step. All right, so we got the car on the alignment rack. These things are actually really cool. I found these on eBay a while ago, and they're basically just pad leveling platforms to lift it off the ground and also to level it so all four corners are flat relative to each other. I marked where these alignment pads go on the floor, so when I pack these pads away, I just put them out and they should be set correctly. All four alignment pads are level. That's really important when doing alignment, because you're talking about millimeters here. So if your pad is down by a millimeter, once again, it's gonna mess with your corner weights. And then the scales, they're just long acre scales. And these plastic bags, what's
More like what's going on with the mic on my GoPro. I got a fancy Sennheiser mic and it seems to do that static thing occasionally. So anyway, let me just butt in here with a little voiceover. So these are basically just trash bags filled with dish soap, and they're folded over a few times and then placed on top of the scales. And they're basically just cheap slip plates. They're very slippery, and they allow the tires to kind of freely slide on the scale when you lift it up and put it down. So whenever you make a setup change, you don't have to shake the car, roll it back and forth. You just lift it, put it back on the ground, and the tires move freely to where they want to be, so you get a nice repeatable measurement for your alignments. So now that you got the car on the ground, you measure everything and then you basically record it all. And of course I'm using my Google Sheets document, which has all of my events on there. Obviously we're going to be looking at CMP, and then yeah, we have pre-event setup, which is how I set the car up initially, and then all of the sessions ending at the race, and then I'm going to start filling out the set down column. So then I can kind of compare how the car started, which was 2588, and then now I can compare it to what the car is now with the set down. Of course, there's going to be a few changes, mainly because we have full fuel, and also I added 50 pounds to make sure I had enough of a safety margin during the event.
And yeah, everything looks right. Our spread on the front right looks correct. Our rear weights look pretty good. Of course, the rear is going to be a little bit heavier just because we have more fuel in the car and the 50-pound bricks. So yeah, corner weights are looking pretty damn good. So what I'm gonna do next is I'm going to measure ride height, and I do that using two things. Number one, this level. Number two, this metric scale. This is really nice, it's in millimeters. Let's get a light, let's get my level. And let's go underneath the car. So this is gonna be hard to show you guys, but basically what I do is I put my level across on the pad. So this simulates the floor. And I'm going to take my scale, if I can pick it up with my gloves. So I take my scale and I marked on the subframe green. That's where I measure off of, so I can get repeated measurements. So we are looking like about 105, I would say. Let's see what this side is. 106. Let's go to the rear. Well, let me put that in first. It's a lot lower on the front. Don't know why. Scale or level across, and I'm measuring to here and here. So let's see, what do we got? 121 and 123. So we ended up a lot lower in the front by about 4 mil on the left front, 5 mil on the right front, 2 mil down left rear, 3 mil down right rear. So obviously we have a little bit more fuel in the back, so that explains why the rear is lower. Not exactly sure why the front's lower, so that's interesting. Up next, camber. So long anchor camber gauge, really nice piece, really good measurements, and it's pretty simple. So put it on the lip of the wheel, make sure the bubble on the top is level. It's hard on one hand, so 3.7 degrees right front, that looks pretty good. 3.6, 3.5, and last one, 3.6. All right, so camber. We started with 3.8 throughout the weekend. We lost a little bit in the left front. Right front looks pretty good. 3.4, 3.4, 3.5, 3.5. I'd say that looks pretty good. The rear makes sense because we were a little bit lower with the weight of the fuel, so a little bit more camber in the rear. Regarding the front ride heights, my theory is that it just settled maybe a little bit more. I don't know. I think I put new tenders in the front, so maybe the tenders compressed a little bit more. Maybe they needed an event to kind of settle in. I don't know, maybe that's my theory. That's probably why the front's a little bit lower and the rear is lower, just because of the extra fuel. So I'm gonna go with that. So anyway, up next, we're gonna measure toe, and I'm going to use the Smart String setup. They're a little annoying to set up, so let's cut to a time lapse. So what I'm doing here is I'm actually making sure the bar in the front is equal left to right. So I'm gonna measure up the hub here. I got 134 millimeters, 133. I'll move the bar over just a smidge. 133 and a half, go to the rear. Smart strings are on. So basically what you're making here is a perfect square around the entire car. So we have these grooves where you put the fishing rod on. So we're here on number 2. If you follow the string, it goes back to number 2. So we've made a perfect square around the car, and then I measured the string on this side versus this side, and we centered it. So the strings are perfectly centered in the rear, and they're perfectly centered in the front. Now that we have this square, what we do is we measure the toe on each corner individually. Once again, using my little string here. So I'm gonna go to the back side of the wheel. We have about 51. I'll measure to the front side of the wheel, 50. So the front of the wheel is closer to the string than the back. So we have 50 here, 51 there. That means we have 1 mil of toe out in the front. Let's check this side. 49 and a little bit, 51. 2 mil out on this side. So 49 and a little bit, 51. Wheels pointed out. We got about 2 mil of toe out. And I would say that looks pretty good because we had -1, -1. So we're at -1, -2. Let's check the rear real quick. 110, further in, 107. We are toe in, 3 mil. So 106, 108, boom, toe in, 2 mil, done. So that's it. That's basically a set down. And I like to do this after every event just to kind of figure out where the car is at the end of the event, right? If something has shifted, or if, like, let's say I lost a degree of camber in one of the fronts, that means something in the front must have slipped, either an upper control arm, something might be bent, something might be off. So it kind of tells you basically what happened throughout the weekend. And also, if I made a bunch of changes at the track, I don't have an alignment rack at the track to measure things. So I might change ride heights, I might add camber, and then you're kind of guessing what the alignment is. So it's a good way to kind of, hey, maybe the setup changes I did at the track were awesome and the car felt really good. I can measure where I ended up and I can save that for the next event. Let me take a seat here, summarize what I got. Corner weights look pretty good. I have the same spread on the front, so nothing really changed there. Of course, the car is heavier because I have a full tank of fuel, extra 50 pounds of rewards weight that I added. Ride heights, the front ride height decreased by about 4.5 mil on average. That's a pretty big amount of ride height change for me setting it up before the event after. Now, my theory is I put softer front tender springs on it, and I think maybe they weren't fully settled in, and now they're fully set at their natural position. So what I'm gonna probably have to do for Gingerman is I'm gonna have to raise the front just to get back to the 110 that I originally planned on running. The car looks awesome this low, but it is rubbing a lot on the fender flares, so I'm gonna have to raise the front ride height. Camber looks pretty good. Camber only dropped like 0.1, 0.2. I would say that's within error. I don't think anything changed there. Rear camber looks solid. Front toe looks pretty damn good. Rear toe, 1 mil difference. You're not gonna feel the millimeter. So anyway, that's the alignment at the end of CMP. Ignore my lawnmower. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm just going to slightly alter the alignment for Gingerman. So what I'm thinking is I'm going to raise the front ride height, probably 6 mil, decent amount. And when I change the front ride height, I'm gonna lose front camber, so I'm gonna have to correct that. I didn't really cover this at CMP, but we were able to unlock a lot more front camber thanks to Pat at Old Boys. He's the freaking man. He machined some custom upper brackets for the custom upper control arm. So I'll show you guys those real quick. We were basically able to go from a max of 3.4, I felt wasn't enough for this car, and now we upped it up to I could go up to like 4.5 if I wanted to, but I ran 3.8. As you guys can tell at CMP, and it felt really good. So I'm going to leave the camber around 3.8. The rear felt really good. I'm debating maybe zeroing out the rear toe, mainly because Gingerman, it really eats front tires. So if you have a pushy car at Gingerman, you're not gonna have a fun time. So I think I'm gonna take the rear toe in out. That was confusing. I think I'm going to adjust the rear toe to 0. Other than that, that's basically it. Change front and ride height, reconfirm the alignment, and then adjust the rear toe to 0. And that's gonna be my alignment for Gingerman. Okay, so I'm gonna raise the right front 3 turns. That should get us what we need, and I need to loosen the thing. So up 3 turns. 1, 2. We'll do 2 actually. Let's do 2 for now. Oh man, this wheel's filthy. You wanna know why I know the front's bottoming out quite a bit. Let me show you. Exhibit A, definitely rubbing tire on my tubs. And exhibit B. So these are what I was referring to. Padded Old Boys machine these. This is actually a really trick setup. So these whole upper control arms, they're based around PCI arms, but I basically designed them myself to be longer to match up with my custom lower control arms. They're also longer and they have a cool spherical kind of ball joint setup. So I had to redesign the upper control arms to be longer, and I made these to basically fit perfectly within my shock tower. So these are really sweet. The issue that I had was I was using the standard PCI center blocks and I wasn't able to get enough camber out of my design. So I had Pat machine these. I sent him the drawings, and the spherical is basically moved a little bit rearward on this block, and it's also narrower. And I have these shims here so I can basically move this block fore and aft to adjust caster. Now I haven't maxed out rearward for max caster, but pretty cool little design. So I want to just shout out Padded Old Boys. The dude is awesome. He machined the lower control arms. These are custom billet. These are designed by Hybrid Racing. And like I said, they're really cool because they have sphericals incorporated into the LCA instead of a ball joint, and super beef setup. You can adjust roll centers and all that. Really cool. They're also 15 mil longer. They have an integrated sway bar mount that you can see there, and they're all spherical. So really cool setup. Pat also machined the heat treated steel ball joint. He did the stamped arms, bent them, welded them up, machined the center blocks. So here's a fun little trick how to adjust camber on the front. This is how I do it, right? When I measured the car on the ground, it was 3.3. I want 3.9 to 4 degrees in the front, which means I basically need to add about 0.6 to 0.7 degrees of camber. So what I like to do is I like to measure the camber off the caliper. So we're at 87.1. So I want to add 0.6 degrees. So I want to target 86.4. So of course this is not going to be perfect, but it's the easiest way to add, to get close to what you're trying to add camber wise. So pretty simple adjustment. Just loosen these 4 bolts. Doesn't seem like we can get 86.4, 86.8. So it seems like we could only add about 0.3 degrees of camber. Well, if that's the max, then that it is what it is. So we got 3.8. I'm actually okay with that. That's good. All right, alignment for Gingerman is done. So now that that's done, I'm going to basically work on fixing the headlights and also do the brake ducts on the front. So yeah, that's basically it for tonight. Do a little bit more work, and then a little bit more work tomorrow, Sunday, and then a few more days to button everything up and get it loaded up for Gingerman. It's another day here. It's Monday, a few days left till Gingerman. Alignment's completely done, and yesterday I took apart the front end because we're going to be doing a few changes to the front end, mainly the brake ducts like I mentioned before, and actually we're going to add an oil cooler as well. I always used to run an oil cooler. I didn't for CMP just because I was lazy, but more on that later. Since I got everything apart, I got the splitter off the car. It's actually not technically a splitter, it's an under tray or under panel or whatever you want to call it. Basically in GLTC you can have 2 options. You can have a splitter, which is a max length of 3 inches, but to run that you have to run, I think it's 2% or 3% extra weight, which some can argue might be beneficial, but I chose to chop off the splitter portion and just make it an under tray. My reasoning for that is, one, I stepped up from a 255 tire to a 265, so I already have a little bit more extra front grip. And two, the car was a little bit tail happy last year. Well, CMP pretty much proved that I think I did the right decision. So a little less weight, not as much front grip, but the 265s add to it. But anyway, want to talk about this because when I did the alignment yesterday, the front was a lot lower than I expected. Also, it is really, really sunny. Let me go into the shade here. When I was doing the alignment, I noticed that the front actually ended up a lot lower than I thought it would be by like 4 or 5 mil, which isn't a huge amount, but the splitter kind of proves that I ran the car too low. Not only do I have rub marks on the fender flares on both sides, I also have a lot of rubbing on the under tray. So you can see just how much we were rubbing on the splitter. Now, a little bit of rubbing's okay, but you generally don't want the splitter constantly hitting the ground because you lose all your downforce. So I have a few tricks. Number one, I use these titanium pucks from Professional Awesome. Really cool product, like these little pucks right here that you could put a bolt through, and that's how I mount this splitter's upside down, by the way, and that's how I mount my splitter rods, right? So little mount here, and it goes into the titanium puck, and you can see this side is rubbing a little bit. This side's all the way through almost. That's a lot of rubbing. How do I fix that? Well, number one, we raised the front ride height by 6 to 7 mil. So we raised the front quite a bit. So that's gonna prevent it from bottoming out on the splitter. And number two, I'm gonna add a few more of these guys. So once again, Professional Awesome. Now these are the more aerodynamic shape. I'm gonna mount them on my splitter. There, and there. I'm gonna have a total of 6 titanium rub pucks just because I want to protect the splitter a little bit more. This splitter, it's pretty basic. It's just 3/4 inch birch plywood. With these titanium pucks, it's just gonna prevent it from wearing, especially like right here. It's gonna prevent it from wearing any more than it needs to. So anyway, that's what I'm gonna do right now. Get these pucks on there and then move on to the next project. 1 puck, 2 puck, 3 puck, 4 puck, 5, and 6. So a little bit more protection on the splitter. So yeah, let's put that on and move on to the next step. It's Monday, or no, it's Tuesday. I'm not feeling great, a little under the weather, so that's awesome. So first thing, I wanted to install an oil cooler. I didn't run an oil cooler at CMP because I was lazy, didn't have time to assemble it. This cross member holds the radiator, you can kind of see in the corners. And then I just added a little extension for the oil cooler, but it was really flimsy. So I basically just made these vertical pieces here. They tie into the Charlie Mua Doryoku crash bar. So it stiffens this whole thing up because this oil cooler, it's pretty big and it gets heavy when you put a lot of oil in it. It holds about 1/4 of oil in here. Definitely don't want that thing flopping around. So anyway, I got this all mounted up. I'm not terribly impressed with the duct work. This is just to support the oil cooler. If I were to do a full duct, I'd make it really nice. But once again, I'm time limited. I'm just trying to brace this oil cooler as much as I can. And yeah, we're going once again with the Chase Bays thermostatic sandwich plate. So this guy will open at a certain temperature. So I ran this last year. It worked great. Unfortunately, I blew the engine up, and my rule is to never use sandwich plates over again after a blown engine, because you can get little pieces of metal in here and you'll never know about it. So Chase Bays hooked it up with the fresh unit. About to slap this bad boy on, and I combine that with an S2000 oil filter. So boom, boom. I got my lines already made over here. The lines are gonna go from the back of the engine. They're gonna go up over here, or sorry, they're gonna go under the frame rail and then to the front where the oil cooler is located. So that's today's project. Finish up the oil cooler install and then continue on. I'm tired. I should have probably done a lot of this work a long time ago. leave me, it's always seems to happen that I leave things to the last freaking second, but let's get back to it. It's done, it's in there. It's hard to see because there's literally zero space, but got the chase bays, sandwich plate in there, and here's how I do mine. Like I said, very minimal space. I have the lines basically go 90 degrees straight out the right and then down towards the frame rail, and it gets pretty close to the crank pulley, but we have clearance here. And then I use a P-clamp to hold it against the frame rail, and then I use these guys to kind of keep this together. And then this will eventually go up to the oil cooler up here, and then on the other side. Next up, this is the oil cooler that was on the car when the engine blew up, so I've been just using this for mock-up purposes. So I got a fresh one here, and the reason I have these slots open on the lip is basically for airflow into the oil cooler. So those slots will feed fresh air directly to this guy. Normally I would put kind of mesh here to prevent rocks and stuff from flying into the coolers. This is for the radiator, and I don't really have anything here. And I also need to, there's holes here that I tighten the lip to the splitter to, so I need access to go in here. So I have an alternate plan to protect this cooler, and that's it's what dirt circle track racers use. So this, I bought this from I believe Summit, All-Star Performance. There you go, there you see it, radiator honeycomb. So this is what dirt circle track racers use. They put these on the radiators so their radiators don't get punctured, and it comes in a big sheet like this. So you could put this on your radiator, you could put this on your oil cooler. So for example, this is gonna go right here on the oil cooler. And then you buy these also from All-Star Performance. It's these little like zip tie clamps. So I'll puncture through, clamp it, and this will stay on the oil cooler. And then basically it is now protected. And there you go, done. So you go through, you put a little washer on there, and on the back side you have a little rubber, and then you have basically the clip. And yeah, that's not going anywhere. So let's mount this bad boy up. All right, oil cooler installed. We got the protector on it. We got my lines on. So once again, comes down. I have it connected here. And there's really no concern with the tire hitting this, because one, I have steering rack limiters, so as you can see the tire doesn't even hit the chassis here, and you know it's clear of the chassis. We're also clear of the pulley, as you can see. So yeah, one line goes here underneath to this guy, and then the other line follows the other side of the radiator and it goes there. So that is the front oil cooling setup. This is where my little intake duct is. I can position this if I want fresh air, or if it's raining, I'll just move this off to the side behind the bumper. So my next step, besides cleaning, to cycle the oil through the whole system, and just to make sure I have oil pressure. And then I'm going to swap the oil. So what I'm gonna basically do now is I'm just going to just click, keep the starter running without any fuel pressure, just to kind of turn the motor around, build some oil pressure. So we're already at 3 here. Building. Let the starter cool down a little bit. I want to get up to like maybe 30 PSI. All right, we built some pressure. Just make sure there's no leaks anywhere. Looking good. Looking good down here. Gonna start it, let it run for a little bit, and then we're gonna swap some oil. Looks solid. That's a job done. Progress progress continues. This is all stuff that I was dreading on doing, and for some strange reason, I feel like doing it all a few days before the next event. So let's see. All right, we got the oil cooler set up. We got the splitter on, just to kind of show you guys how much space I have underneath. Oil cooler lines. They're a little bit close to the splitter on this side, so I'm gonna have to probably zip tie them up a little bit. But here, they're looking pretty good. So, next project, brake ducts. So, keep saying so. All right, here's my idea. Once again, this is kind of half-assed because I'm running low on time. So I got these hybrid racing intake ducts, and I got a bunch of these from Hybrid, and I kind of been using them to kind of piece together my intake setup, and I got a lot left over. So this is a cool little, 90-degree bend, and what I'm thinking is I'm literally just going to zip tie this to the splitter, and I'm gonna angle it up into the hub area. So it's gonna look pretty much like that, and it's gonna feed fresh air basically directly right into that little pocket, and that's where you want all the fresh air to go. And what I'm going to do to make this easy to assemble, let's just pretend this lives there on the splitter. I have this 2.5-inch brake duct hose that I've already mocked up to the bumper, and it's going to get zip tied to these little ducts right there. You can see them. Those ducts, they're literally just vacuum cleaner ducts. So it's like 3-inch to 2.5-inch adapters, and you can basically bolt them to anything. So this orange duct will live on that bumper, and I'm gonna cut it to length. So when I put the bumper on, all I'm basically gonna do is with my hand, I'm just going to feed the hose into this guy like that, and then boom, that's it. All right, it's a pretty simple way of mounting these. I use what is called elevator bolts. So underneath here, it's nice and flush. So it doesn't disrupt their dynamics, and it's also not going to break off. So yeah, elevator bolt through, then I just use some P-clamps and a big zip tie. I'm gonna place this guy here, and then yeah, that's it. Just zip tie it on, and that's one side done. And then angle it up, of course. So we got fresh air. All right, brake ducts are good. Into the tube, right into the little brake pocket. All right, another day. It's Wednesday, last day of working on the car. Still not feeling great. Hopefully I'll, clear up by the weekend. But yeah, just got a little bit more work to do. Working on the lights right now. So obviously CMP broke some of my lights, 3/4 of them to be exact. The only thing that survived was this light. So left corner broken, right corner broken, and then of course driver's side headlight, the plastic framing completely broke. So I've had these blanks from the EG hatch that I made a long time ago, and these are really cool. These are actually one-piece eBay headlights, and basically what I've done, let me go out in the sun so you guys see, I basically just gutted them entirely, and then I just painted the inside like an RC car body black, and they weigh like not even a pound. Super light, pretty cheap to do, and it was really cool. So I have both of them, and of course they're meant for an EG hatch, so they don't fit perfectly, but they fit good enough. Now, I would actually like to run both, but the thing with GLTC is we actually require headlights in rain races. So if it starts to rain, I don't have a headlight, I could get disqualified for that. I'm just gonna run the blank on the driver's side, and I'll run the OEM light on the passenger side, and I'm gonna call it a day, because once again, the theme of this week is I don't have enough time. Got my nasty corner light on. Bumper looks all right. It's gonna be weird having a black headlight here, but it's all good. And then this is what the other side looks like. So, pretty cool little simple idea, easy to put the bumper on. So there you go, there's the oil cooler. I'll probably duct the bottom of it and then the sides just to make sure all the air is going into the cooler. But as of right now, I'm not too worried about it. You can see all the orange there, and then course, that's where the radiator, the little chase bay, oh, not little, the massive chase bay's radiator will live. So yeah, pretty cool. Let's go. 300V, 10W40, it's the good stuff. So that's it. Car's done, at least for Gingerman. Busy few days. Honestly, I'm pretty tired. Being sick for most of the last few days was not great. But anyway, I think the car's ready to go. The car was fast at CMP, so I don't see why it wouldn't be fast at Gingerman. It's similar track in my opinion. And I think these setup changes are really gonna help the car out a little bit. The car was just too low at CMP, which it is a problem sometimes, unfortunately. That's it for this video. This is probably a long one, maybe 2 videos, I don't know. But next up is cleaning up the garage and then loading it into the trailer and then heading over to CMP, or not CMP, heading over to Gingerman tomorrow. So I'll catch you guys later.